You want to know how much you will need to get started on your first investment? Could you make it work with 10K? 20K? 30? We'll give you the facts.
Liz Larry.
It's close. It's very close.
So, okay. I get a lot of people that say, I've got X amount of dollars. I've got $10,000. I've got $20,000. I've got $30,000. Is that enough money to get started? What do you think?
The big question. Yeah, I mean, I think especially in our newbie space, and newbie not in a bad way, just in hey, you're coming into the dark side of investment real estate and you're just trying to get your feet wet. That's the question I get probably most often is, how much money do I need to get into the throes of it? It's a tough question. I think some of it comes down to the market that you're looking to invest in. So here in Columbus, Ohio, where the Loan Lounge is featured at, is, I mean, our average purchase price is what, $250? Yeah, that's probably about right. Even for investment properties. So to get into those deals, no, 10K is not going to do it. Not going to do it. Because generically speaking, especially if you're considering like a fix and flip opportunity, and maybe that would eventually turn into a BRRRR where you're holding it as a rental. I mean, you're going to need minimum with good credit 10% of the purchase price. So if we're talking $250 purchase price, we're $25K down plus closing costs plus reserves and like a whoops-a-daisy repair that you didn't expect. So we're already out of the gate here in Columbus for 10K. Now, so I personally invest in the Dayton market, Dayton, Ohio. And we've bought properties for anywhere from like 45 to 75 that you can just barely get done with 20. I don't know if you could do 10. Thoughts?
What's the price point in Dayton like?
Again, I would say like you could pick up a BRRRR or a fix and flip for 60-ish.
Okay.
Ish, keyword.
So 60-ish there, and you're putting what, 30 grand into it? 40
Probably,
grand?
yeah. ARVs in the 120, 150 range.
Okay.
So solid deals.
Yeah.
If you're bringing 10% of the purchase price, you're 6K plus closing costs plus reserves. I think you could get it done with 20.
Yeah.
10 is just...
It's tough.
I think that's a stretch. And honestly, you have to remember, like, we're not just talking the down payment. We're not just talking closing costs. Like, you need that space to have reserves to pay the interest-only payments on your hard money loan.
Yep.
You need reserves in case some repair comes up that you didn't expect. All of those things need to be factored in before you ever get into a deal. And especially for a newbie. Like, I always joke that I'm like a mama duck for some of my clients. I'm just like, please don't get into something that is going to bite you in the ass, honestly. Yeah. Because honestly, if you do your first deal wrong, you may never do a second, third, or fourth. Now, if you do your first deal and it's solid, second deal is solid, third deal has a little hair to it, you're probably going to stick it out for deal 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
But if your first ones...
Yeah, you're going to swear it off and you're never going to do it again. And you're just going to say stocks, bonds, mutual funds. That's the only thing I want to do from now on.
That sounds boring.
It's
so boring.
There's very few meetups for those.
Weird. But I think if we have 10K, what could we do?
I mean, we could, and we don't, because I know we've discussed this before in other conversations, so I don't want to belabor the point. But you could potentially look at a house hack.
Yeah.
So
Primary residence.
So that's where you're using an FHA loan. You're putting 3.5% down, and you're living in one half, and you're renting out the other side of like a duplex, triplex, fourplex. You can't use it for 5-unit up. So if you see some sweet deal for 5 units in Springfield, Ohio, you're not going to use an FHA loan for that. But you could use it for a duplex, triplex, fourplex. So that's an option.
And you want to be strategic about that. You definitely, like, again, if the play is to do a house hack, buy a multifamily. I mean, you could do it with a single family, but the goal is to do it with a multifamily. Make as much as you can on that first primary residence or second primary residence as possible so that you can really kind of grow your doors as much as you can. Again, I personally took my primary residence and converted it into a rental. So it's definitely, a way of kind of working a cash position and growing your portfolio. But I would say 10K, that's about the only thing that you're going to do. And you're still going to be limited to a certain extent on price point. And just as a reminder, LFG lending, we do not do any of these FHA and conventional loans. We only focus in the investment space, but we have great people that we refer out that'll take amazing care of any of our clients that want a house hack. So we got you
Yeah.
in that regard. 20K. What kind of deal are we looking at for 20K?
Yeah, 20K. I feel like that Dayton deal is a little bit more comfortable with 20K. So if you're buying for 60, you're putting 10% down. That's $6,000.
You're what? Closing costs 7? Roughly?
7 to 8
Yeah.
maybe. And then so you're $14,000 into it. Again, see, you're getting real tight there because, okay, cool. Let's say you get out the door for 14 grand now, and you've got 20 grand in your pocket. Well, that leaves you $6,000 to get started on that project. So that's possible. It'd
Because
be
you have
nice.
to get your contractor started. So keep in mind, for a fix and flip loan, your rehab budget is held in escrow. And work has to be done to be able to draw on that said escrow amount. So depending on your contractor's flexibility, you will have to complete work, maybe buy the material, pay for labor, complete a draw, and then you'll be compensated back. So you're going to need some money on hand to get that process started. And so if you don't have that extra, that's going to start to eat into that little extra that you do have, and you could run yourself into a pickle.
Yeah.
So.
Now, if you can get a deal with your contractor to where you're paying them all at the end, or you're paying them through the draws rather than giving them money up front, that's a possibility. I had an arrangement with a contractor where I just paid him $1,500 a week. So $1,500 a week until the job was done. You know,
And then you settled up at the end?
And we settled up at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. So that seemed to work. That
Well,
kept him.
and my contractor, they give us one invoice.
Yeah.
And our invoice is at the end of the project. I would say this is an exception to the rule. Most contractors, job's done, they want paid on that day because they have people to pay as well.
Yep.
So I can't tell enough. I tell newbies all the time, like, start there. Oh, let's not go find a deal. Go find your contractor and have a very frank conversation of, hey, I'm in this cash position. We're going to come up with this scope of work together. You're going to know what the numbers are. I'm going to know what the numbers are. And this is how you're going to get compensated. Anything outside of this, I have wiggle room of $5K to play around with. Maybe not even tell them that. So they kind of keep to their scope of work. But yeah, so 20K, maybe.
Yeah. And that goes back to get a good team, right? You can hear us talk about getting a good team. I think there's going to be a video like right here, right? Yeah, like right there.
Listen to it. It's so important.
It is.
I mean, I stop newbies all the time and I'm like, oh, so do you have a contractor? Do you have a realtor? Do you have a property manager? Do you have all these people? Cool. We'll talk more. Go get those people. Because like we can't look at deals until we have all those team members. Now we're to 30.
Oh, that's juicier. I feel like I see a lot of people that are right around that 30,000, 30 to 40,000, but 30 is probably, I would say, the bare minimum to get started in a fix and flip kind of scenario. Because, okay, let's look at the Dayton deal again. So now you're buying for 60, you're putting $6,000 down, you're going to do, what do we say, $7,000 or $8,000 in closing costs. So now you're $14,000 into it. And that leaves you another $15,000, $16,000 to get started, which is pretty decent.
Yeah.
You know, you could do a kitchen for $5,000, you could do a roof for $5,000, and then apply for those draws and get those and keep it moving, keep it going.
I think that doesn't leave you to be risking it for the biscuit. Because I think too often people are running pretty thin, and you just don't have to. Like, you have to have a pretty high risk tolerance to leave yourself in that 20K spot. That 30K spot, I would say most of our investors would feel comfortable with that deal and take it on and be with less stress throughout the process. So I think it's just being really mindful of where you are risk-wise, what you're willing to take on. If you're willing to risk it for the biscuit, we'll be there to lend it, but we really will probably put a bunch of asterisks and stars and be like, hey, are you comfortable? Do you feel like your scope of work is accurate? Are all these things solid? How long are you going to be in the loan? Because that plays a big factor for holding costs. But I mean, some of these, I would say 30 minimum, in my opinion. Much less than that, you'd be bringing in private investors, which is a whole nother layer. I don't know that we recommend that for our newbies' first deals. That's just, it's just too much, too quick.
So I'm battling this microphone. So so let's look at the $30,000 thing again from a different perspective. Let's say you don't want to do any rehab and you just want to buy something that's rent ready and ready to rock. So there, I have a group out of Texas that's buying in Montgomery, Alabama, and they are buying properties at $130,000. They're putting 30,000. So basically, they're coming $30,000 out of pocket. They're 80% loan to value, so 20% down plus closing costs and origination. Usually, a lot of these cash to close scenarios are between $30,000 and $35,000, right? So what do you get for that? You end up getting a property, a single family home that rents for about $1,500 a month, and with a manager in place charging 10%, they end up cash flowing at about $300 a month.
Yeah.
So in a
That dog hunts.
yeah, that's a pretty decent deal. So like, okay, so you're putting $30,000 down, you're cash flowing at $300 a month. That's $3,600 a year. That's a 12% cash on cash return.
Yeah, that works. And that's the biggest thing. Don't feel like you have to go to a fix and flip. I think too often, especially on the social media side, you're going to see a lot of investors flipping properties, burring properties, etc. It's not for everybody. To manage a construction project is a whole nother beast. Know that we are here to figure out what is best for you and your risk tolerance and your goals. So we could totally go the long-term financing rental route and keep you in a safe spot. So I think it's just being very self-aware of what you're looking for rather than treading water in the deep end.